Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kseniya and I make videos for people who are going through the family immigration process. In today's video, we're going to fill out the form I-129F, Petition for Alien Fiancé. The current expiration date of this form is 2/28/2026, but also make sure to always double check the edition date at the bottom of your application, that it matches the edition date currently available on the USCIS site. So we're going to get started. First, information about you, the petitioner, the US citizen who wishes to petition their fiancé. Provide your alien number if you have one. If, for example, you are a naturalized US citizen, you will still have to provide your alien number here. If you were born in the United States, you do not have an alien number and you can simply leave it blank. Provide your USCIS online account number. You will only have a USCIS online account number if you have ever submitted any applications online, and provide your US Social Security number. Next, provide the type of application you are submitting. This application 129F serves a dual purpose. One, which is the primary purpose of this application, is to petition your alien fiancé for their 90-day visa so that you can get married and continue their green card process. But the other purpose of this form is to petition your spouse who right now is waiting overseas. This K3 visa will help them visit the United States while they're waiting for the process to complete. But this particular guide is only for fiancé cases, so we will check box for A. And because we're not filing a K3, we are not going to answer this question at all because it doesn't apply to us. Next, provide your full name. You do not have to use capital letters to fill out your applications. That is just my personal preference. Provide if you have ever used any other names, especially on documents and applications. So for example, if you are a naturalized US citizen and you legally changed your name after or during naturalization, but before on your green card or other non-immigrant visa applications, your name was different, you will have to write your name like that here. Or if you ever had a maiden name, for example, you should also be writing in this section. And if you used more than one other name, you can use the last page of this application, additional information, to provide that information. Moving on, provide your mailing address. If you are able to receive mail at your mailing address, you can leave the line 8A blank. This only applies to people who are providing a mailing address where another person will be receiving mail on your behalf. Once you've provided your mailing address, select if your current mailing address is the same as your physical address. If we answer yes, on the next page, we can skip this entire part, physical address 1. But if we answer no, you will see that the form will make it available for us to fill out the physical address 1 information. But since we live at our mailing address, we will say yes and move on. You should still indicate the dates you have been living at this address, so your mailing and your physical address. And in the address history on this page, we need to provide address history for the last 5 years. So we are going to provide another physical address where we have resided for the remainder of the time that will make up the 5 years. Make sure that you don't have any gaps in your address history. And if you run out of space on this page, you can once again go to the last page and fill in the remainder of your address history here by referencing the page and the part number. So page 2, part 1, and you will say physical address 3 and provide those details here. Moving on to employment history for the last 5 years. So first, you need to provide your current employment. If you are employed, you will write your employer information here. But if you are unemployed or a student or retired, you will write something like this and dates of that unemployment, for example. But let's provide our employer information here. Don't forget to provide your occupation and when you started that employment. And if you are currently employed at this job, you can leave the employment end date blank. Moving on, because we are still missing information for the last 5 years, we're going to include other employment in here. And once again, if you also run out of space, you will go to the last page to provide the remainder of your employment history. You will also need to include any gaps that you have of unemployment, retirement, and school if it fits in the last 5 years. Moving on, provide your biographical information, your marital status. So, because we are filing this petition for our alien fiancé, engaged is not a marital status. If you are divorced or widowed, you can check one of these boxes. Provide your city, town of birth, province or state, and country of birth. Moving on, provide information about your parents. It doesn't matter which order you have to go in. So provide your parent one's information. If, for example, your parent is no longer living, you can say that they are deceased, for example. And leave the country of residence blank. And this is asking about your biological or adoptive parents. So if you have a biological parent and a step parent, for example, you will still indicate your biological parent's information here unless that step parent actually legally adopted you. And if there is information that you're not aware about, so for example, you know your mother's information because it is most likely on your birth certificate, but say if you don't know your father's information, if you don't have a biological father and you don't have an adoptive father, then you can write something like unknown, for example, in all the lines. Provide your mother's information. The next question asks if you have ever been previously married. So if you answer yes, you will need to provide information on your previous spouse. So if you selected right here divorced or widowed, then you will need to provide information of your previous spouse here. And if you had multiple prior marriages, you will then have to reference this item number on, once again, the last page, the additional information page. And even if your marriage was annulled, it still counts as marriage in the eyes of USCIS. So you will also have to provide that documentation and answer yes to this question. So let's say that we've never been married before. Provide your citizenship information. So say we were born in the United States and we've never obtained certificate of naturalization or citizenship. If we answer yes to this question, for example, if you naturalized, on the next page you will need to provide your certificate number, place, and date of issue. Moving on, the next question asks if you have ever filed I-129F for any other beneficiary, and you still need to mention anyone for whom you have filed this type of petition, even if it was approved and your beneficiary never arrived in the US. You do not have to mention here your current beneficiary if, for example, you filed for them in the past. This is only asking if you have ever filed this petition for any other beneficiary. You will answer yes or no. So let's say, for example, we'll answer yes. We will need to provide the following information for this beneficiary: when you filed this petition and what action did USCIS take. Was the petition approved? Was it denied, revoked? But let's say, for example, you began this petition and then you withdrew it before there was a decision on this case. Then you can say, for example, withdrawn. The next question asks if you have any children under age 18, even if these children do not reside with you and you don't claim them on your tax returns, you still should be mentioning any children you have under age 18. Let's say, for example, we do have a child. In that case, you will only need to provide the ages of those children. You do not need to provide ages of children that are over 18. So let's say, for example, we have a 12-year-old child. Next, provide the information about all U.S. states and foreign countries in which you have lived since your 18th birthday. Lived means actually resided. So if you visited a country for a short trip, that doesn't count. If you actually resided in another country for college, for example, or your job, then you will count that country or state here. And it doesn't matter which order you go in. If we run out of space, you will provide that information on the additional information page. Moving on, part 2, provide information about your beneficiary. So this is your fiancé. They probably don't have an A number yet, but if they have ever been in the US before, they may have an A number, so you will need to provide it here. They probably don't have a social security number yet, so you can also leave this blank and provide their date of birth. Provide their gender and their marital status, where they were born, and country of citizenship or nationality. Next, provide if your beneficiary has ever used any other names. That includes any other name variations or spellings they have used on other documents and any maiden names that they have used. If not, leave this blank and move on. Provide the mailing address of your beneficiary. This line is the same as the one I explained earlier. If your beneficiary receives mail at this address, you can leave it blank. And when writing your fiancé's foreign address, you can literally follow the address format of their foreign residence. You can just literally translate it to English the way their foreign address is. And if their foreign address is too long, yes, you can technically use the last page of the form to clarify the address here, but in my personal opinion, you should then leave any lines where your information doesn't fit blank, and after printing this form very neatly, write that address in this line using a black pen. Or alternatively, you can also use the Microsoft Edge browser to add text and make that text a little bit smaller to fit in this line. But in my opinion, you would want to have the full address here. Moving on, provide your beneficiary's address history also for the last 5 years. You will need to provide their current address first if it is different from the mailing address above. If they are residing at this address, then you can leave all of this blank and only indicate the dates since which they have been living at this address. If this address was less than 5 years ago, then in the physical address too, you will continue their address history and so on. If this still doesn't make up the 5 years, then you can use the last page again to fill in the physical address, 3, 4, etc. Moving on to your beneficiary's employment history. So first, provide the name of their employer and dates of that employment. And if they're currently employed at this job, you can leave the employment end date blank here. And you will also indicate any gaps in employment as well. Moving on, provide the information about the beneficiary's parents. Once again, this is asking about biological parents. And what a coincidence that our parents' first names are the same. The next question asks if the beneficiary has ever been previously married. So if your fiancé has been married before, you will answer yes or no, even if widowed or divorced or annulled. But if not, click no and move forward. Once again, if your fiancé has previously been married, provide the name of that prior spouse here. The next question asks if your beneficiary has ever been in the United States, and if your beneficiary was in the United States before and they already left, you don't need to fill out anything else. But if your beneficiary is currently in the United States, you will need to complete this information here. So what they entered is their I-94 arrival departure number, which you can, by the way, still obtain on the cbp.gov site, the date they arrived, the date their authorized stay expired, their passport number, country of issuance, and expiration date of that passport. Travel document number and passport number are mutually exclusive. So if your beneficiary has a passport, you can leave the travel document number blank. So let's say that Jane was in the US before but is currently not in the United States, so we will leave this information blank. The next question asks if beneficiary has any children of any age. So let's say, for example, that Jane does have a child. So let's provide information about that first child. And the next question will ask if this child resides with your fiancé beneficiary. If you answer yes, that's all you have to say. But if this child doesn't reside with your beneficiary, you will answer no and provide where they are actually living. When your fiancé's petition gets forwarded to the NVC will then ask if any of these children will be traveling with your beneficiary on a K2 visa. They will be eligible to come to the US under the K2 visa as long as they remain under 21 and unmarried at the time they enter the US. The next question asks, where in the United States is your fiancé planning to live? And most likely it's going to be the same address as the petitioner's current physical address. And provide the daytime telephone number associated with this address, which means after their arrival to the United States, what phone number will they be using? And most likely this is going to be yours, the petitioner's phone number. Next, provide your beneficiary's physical address abroad. So, most likely, where they currently reside is the same address as their physical address 1, which is probably the same as their current mailing address. And provide their daytime phone number. You will also notice that sometimes foreign phone numbers also do not fit in this box. So what you can do is you can leave this blank, and after printing out this application, you can neatly write their foreign address in pen here, including any special characters like the plus sign, for example. Next, provide your beneficiary's name and address in his or her native alphabet. So, if your beneficiary is from a country that uses Roman letters, which means English letters, so for example, they are from Latin America, Central America, Europe, where most of those countries use English letters, then you can leave this whole area blank. But if your beneficiary comes from a country where their native alphabet is Cyrillics, Mandarin, Arabic, Japanese, then in that case, you will need to write in their native alphabet what their name and address would look like here. So once you've finished filling out this information in their native alphabet, you can go ahead and move on. Question 51 asks if your fiancé is related to you. So this If you review the form instructions, it will ask you whether you and your fiancé have a familial relationship, and then they will ask you to describe the degree of that relationship. So for example, cousins, etc. And hopefully you will answer no to this question, because if you answer yes, even if it is customary in your culture to marry your cousin, your second cousin, etc., in the United States, that kind of union may not be legal, and US may not recognize that kind of relationship for the purposes of marriage, so you may be denied for this application. Because we answered no, we can skip question 52. Next, it asks if you and your fiancé have met in person during the 2 years immediately before filing this petition. It doesn't mean you had to spend the entire 2 years together, but it means that you must have met at least once in person. If you answer yes, they will then ask you in question 54 to provide the circumstances of your in-person meeting. If you don't have enough room to describe it here, you can use either the additional information page, or you can use the black pen or Microsoft Edge once again to decrease the text size and write that explanation here. You'll need to attach the evidence of that with your application as well. And if you answered no, for example, you had a religious exemption, which is described in the form instructions, you will need to explain why you are requesting this exemption. So let's say we have met, so we're going to provide an explanation that looks something like this. You can describe when you first met and where it was. Then you can explain when you have met again and provide places and dates. And you will need to provide evidence of those in-person meetings. The next question asks if you had an international marriage broker involved. So this is, arrangement services. Maybe you met on some kind of website. Moving on, the consular processing information asks you where the beneficiary will apply for this K1 visa. So once this I-129F petition is approved, it will be sent to the NVC, and then the NVC will work with the US Embassy or consulate closest to your beneficiary to arrange their visa interview, and that is the place that will issue them their visa to travel to the US. You cannot really choose the embassy or consulate, but in this form, you can request if, for example, there is no embassy or consulate in your beneficiary's country, but it is not guaranteed. So the NVC usually makes the decision primarily of where they will send your case. Moving on, part 3 asks about the criminal information. So this is the criminal information of the petitioner. If the petitioner has ever been involved in any criminal offenses, then you may not be eligible for this process. I encourage you to also read the form instructions to see what kind of criminal information they're asking for and what kind of documents you will need to provide. Have you ever been arrested or convicted for any of the following crimes? If you answer yes to any of these, I recommend that you at least consult with an attorney to see if they can help you apply for a waiver, which we will talk about in a minute. Even if your records were sealed, expunged, or cleared, even if anybody told you that these records are no longer available or they're no longer on your record, you must disclose them to USCIS. If you answered yes to any of these questions, they will also ask you to then clarify over here what happened. Answer if you've ever been arrested, cited charged or fined. It does say that you can exclude any traffic violations unless it was alcohol or drug related or involved a fine of $500 or more. If you answer yes, they will ask you to provide the details. The next part of this application is asking if you are requesting any type of waivers. You should carefully review the form instructions to see if you even need a waiver. One of the waivers that you may have to request is if you are a multiple filer. If this is your first time ever filing the fiancé petition, you will most likely click not applicable, option 5D. And also, this will apply to you if this is your second time filing this kind of petition, like in our case. Even though we have filed for this beneficiary in the past, we still don't need a waiver because this is only our second time filing this kind of petition for an entirely different person. But a multiple filer waiver request must be completed if you fall under one of these categories. Either you have previously filed this form on behalf of 2 or more fiancés, which means this is your third time filing this kind of petition, or if you are filing this petition for the same exact person and you filed this kind of petition for them less than 2 years ago. You also may have to request a waiver specific to your case if you had any kind of convictions or restraining orders. Any convictions may not be favorable to your case, so you may want to consult with somebody to see how to best go about this kind of situation. But in our case, we're going to select 5D. Moving on, provide your biographic information, so the biographic information of the petitioner who's filling out this form. Moving on, provide your contact information, and after you print out this application, sign in pen. If you used an interpreter, you can provide that information here, but if nobody interpreted this form for you, you can leave this blank. And if nobody prepared this form for you, you can also leave the preparer information blank. And finally, we are at the additional information page. So here again, you will have to provide any additional information that we referenced in the form. And finally, if you're wondering what kind of evidence needs to be provided for the form I-129F, that is also all listed in the form instructions. Firstly, provide evidence of U.S. citizenship of the petitioner because only citizens are able to file this petition. Next, if you had any prior marriages, you will need to provide proof of termination of that, and that applies to both you or the fiancé beneficiary, so it could include divorce certificates, annulment certificates, death certificates, etc. Then you will need to attach one passport style photo of yourself and your beneficiary taken within 30 days of filing this petition. Write the name and A number if you have one on the back of these photos. If there has ever been any name changes, you need to provide evidence of that. So any legal documents that demonstrate the differences of your names for both you or your fiancé beneficiary, and any documents that are not in English must be translated to English. If your beneficiary has ever been to or is currently in the US, you will need to provide a copy of their I-94. Next, you will need to submit evidence that you are planning to marry within 90 days. So this is kind of like a statement, a signed affidavit from you and your fiancé demonstrating to USCIS that you are planning to marry. I will post some resources in the description box of this video, as well as on the screen some samples of what it may look like. You will also need to provide evidence of your in-person meeting in the 2-year period before you filed this petition, such as photographs, any airline tickets, passport pages, other evidence, maybe travel itineraries, affidavits from people that saw you there, showing that you indeed qualify for this petition. Finally, double check the filing fee for this petition on the USCIS fee schedule page. And if you're wondering where to send this petition, you can check it right on their page in the Where to File drop-down menu. It will tell you exactly where to send it if you're using a regular mail or if you're using one of these express mail services. Unfortunately, at this time, this petition can only be filed by mail. So I hope that you found this video useful. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I hope to see you guys in my next videos. Bye!